guys, how we doing? Happy Friday. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I really hope that everyone can hear me. I always forget to take these out when I'm on live. And hopefully my fan is not too loud. I'm still having air conditioning issues. Anyway, so this week I've been talking about habits, and hopefully that's helping you guys. And what I wanted to talk about in this video was why 30 days is kind of your magic number, and then 90 days is also a magic number when it comes to habits. I'm sure a lot of you have probably come across the 21-day number when it comes to habit change, and it's not accurate because and I will say that that number comes from a few different places. There's studies that kind of work with that number. There's neurological studies, there's neural pathway studies, there's neurobiology studies, and all this other stuff. But with my own work of doing it on myself and then working with clients, what I've come across is that habit change is not just creating a new neural pathway. You're not just this. My connection is so bad, I swear, and I'm on Wi-Fi. So hopefully this is somewhat clear. When you are implementing a new habit, it's not just the habit itself that you're trying to implement. You're trying to carry your brain into a new paradigm. So you're forcing yourself to think a different way, and you're trying to hold new emotions, more expansive emotions within you, within your body, within your aura, your energy, to your energy field, to hold space for that habit change to become permanent. Now, 21 days isn't long enough to do that. That's not how our bodies work. It takes 30 days for your hormones to get adjusted. Your biochemistry has to change to match up with this new thing that you've implemented in your life. An example of this is waking up in the morning. I am somebody who's always enjoyed waking up early in the morning. Now, part of that is that my whole life, for the vast majority of it, I've had to wake up between 5 and 7 a.m. between school, and then when I was working, I was always working multiple jobs. So and even now, like, my dog wakes me up between 5 and 6:30 every morning. Like, somewhere between that hour and a half is when I'm going to wake up. Now, there are periods of time in my life where I did not wake up at that time, and I had the room in my schedule. Not that I don't have it now. It's just I went through a phase where I just didn't wake up in the morning, and I wanted to get up earlier. That changes my entire biochemistry when I do that, and this applies to everyone. What does that do? That's going to change what my mood is. That's going to change my mental health is going to change as a result of that. My body weight's going to change as a result of that. My reaction time everything changes. My appetite changes as a result. Everything changes because of just one change in my habit, which is I'm waking up at a later time. Turns out for me, that doesn't work for me. I'm somebody who I feel better, do better, am better when I wake up early in the morning. Between 5 and 7 is usually my prime time. 6 a.m. is kind of like golden hour for me. I used to love 5 a.m. I've adjusted to the fact that it's between 5 and 6:30 is kind of a really good time for me, but I really do like the 6 o'clock hour. Between 6 and 6:30 is usually like really good time for me. I can do 5 and I can do 8, and I'm just not my best. That's been 15 years of me trying to figure that out, trying to be somebody who wakes up later and stays up later. I don't do well with that. I'm somebody who's in bed by 9, and like latest I'll fall asleep is 10:30. If I'm up past that, there's something going on, and I'm usually trying to figure out a way that I can get back to sleep, because I like my sleep, and I function best with the sun. That's my just personal way of doing it. Yours might be completely different. Everyone has a different internal clock, and you have to find the one that works for you, and then work the crap out of it. Don't try to make yourself into someone who you're not. When I was doing the late waking up thing, I was trying to match up with roommates who were like that so I could hang out with them more, and while it had pluses and minuses, but for me, my mental health is my most important thing in my life is my mental health, and making sure that is always as good as I can make it. And I have to go to sleep at a certain time, and sleep is so imperative to mental health in so many ways. That's just, I had to give up the time. I just had to rearrange things and learn different ways of connecting with people that I live with, to accommodate the fact that I'm somebody who has to go to sleep earlier than most people and wake up earlier than most people. But it's about finding what is your strike zone, and then working the crap out of it, making that work for you, rather than lamenting the fact that you're not something else. You are who you are. Work the crap out of it. It works for you. Be okay with that. Make your peace with that, and then work it. So with habit change, 30 days is usually like a nice magic number to get the habit into place, to get into the habit of doing the habit, for lack of a better term. And the reason I mentioned 30 days is, in the 30 days that you're implementing something new, you're going to be working with your self-talk a lot. Now, this connects back to all the stuff that I talked about last week. You're going to be constantly rewiring your brain, because your brain's going to try to talk you out of doing this new thing that it doesn't know what's going to happen after you do this new thing, because it's a new thing, and it can only predict the future by looking at the past. So if this thing is new, it doesn't have any template to work off of, so it can't predict the future, and that freaks it out. It completely freaks out because of that. So what it's going to do when you're doing something new, your brain's going to try to talk you out of it over and over and over again. And that's why 21 days is a really it's a disservice as a number, because it gets passed around in memes and on social media, and everywhere you look it's 21 days, and it's not 21 days. 30 days is the minimum to get into the habit of doing the habit, because in those 30 days you are going to have to constantly refocus your brain to doing this new thing, so it can learn how to become predictive doing this new thing that it's never done before. Or if it has done before, it didn't stick, or for whatever reason, but it's doing this new thing. And it doesn't like doing this new thing because it's a creature of comfort, and it likes doing what it knows that it can predict its future with. You're doing this new thing, you're going to be exhausted from doing this new habit, because you have to keep refocusing your brain. When it tries to go veer off the end and try to get you to not do it, you have to keep refocusing it. You're retraining your brain. That's exhausting. And you have to give yourself that grace that you're going to be a little bit tired when you're implementing this new thing. That doesn't mean you don't follow through on the new thing. It just means that you have to make room for the fact that you're going to be a little bit tired. That it can get, you might be a little bit irritated. All that stuff is going to happen because you're putting this new thing in place, and it's totally fine. But that's where the 30-day number is like super important, because you're just getting into the habit of getting your brain to get on board within those 30 days. Now, what happens after the 30 days? And this is the 90-day number that I mentioned. 90 days is to start seeing like real results from this habit. You have to follow through on it for 90 days to start seeing real results. Now, this is not, a lot of people don't like to hear that. It's not a quick fix. This stuff is not quick. Healing is not quick, and becoming the best version of you and implementing it piece by piece it's not a quick process. This is a lifelong process that we're talking about. But if you're talking about putting boundaries in place, right, and it's just one boundary and habits for yourself, and whenever it comes, as regards to other people, but habits are the boundaries you impose on yourself. They're the things that you do for yourself that allows you to be the best version of you for other people. All right, so as much as I could connect better with roommates that I live with because they're up later, I can't be my best self in those connections, in those conversations, if I'm not sleeping at the time that's right for me and waking up at the time that's right for me, and making sure that I put myself first. All right. And this is really like the self-care is really hard for a lot of people because it's a habit. However often that habit is, it's still a habit. And putting yourself first is really like the integral part of undoing all the narcissistic abuse that you've been through. It's really about, really kind of putting that all together, and the self-care habits are so important for that. But sleep, for example, if you are still kind of operating from a codependence place and you need to make sure, like, you have to have certain connections or, conversations in your day in order to feel like you gave, to feel like you were there for people, but it depletes you, who is that helping? Did you really have a good conversation? Did you have the most authentic conversation, or were you just practicing more codependence there too? Because you can't possibly be able to be truly authentic, if you're operating from a codependent place, because that's not you. I don't know if that made a little bit sense. Sometimes that wording gets a little bit just convoluted. But just like, we're going to go back to the sleep example. If I have to sleep at a certain schedule, if I sleep from 10 to 6, and that is my prime zone to sleep, am I better off hanging out with my roommates for half an hour, and so that I get to bed on time and I can still be my best self for me? Or is it worth it to push it till 11 or 12 and then be exhausted? That will take me 3 days to become unexhausted from, if I don't keep perpetuating that pattern. So your habits are really just self-imposed boundaries, because they allow you to function at your best. We're hoping that these habits are the ones that you've realized over, trial and error, that, these habits are what make me my best. These habits are my self-care. And when I practice these habits, I am my best self, and I'm able to give more of myself to the people in my life that matter. So if me sleeping from 10 to 6 is an integral part of that, and it is, then having to, I'd rather have 30 minutes of really great authentic conversation with my roommate rather than pushing it till 11 or 12 midnight of just talking about stuff that really isn't nourishing. It isn't fun to talk about, or it's gossipy or whatever it is, and then being drained myself even more, not just because of the conversation, but because I'm not sleeping. And then having to deal with an anxious mind for 3 days until I get rested again, and my brain can calm down, and that one habit change, just that one time of coming off my habits for not, cutting my sleep short once in a week leads to me 3 days of having to sleep on time in order to kind of get back to normal. But then am I ditching my workouts as a result because I'm tired? Am I eating more sugary stuff to try to keep myself awake, because when I'm tired my brain will want more sugar, and then that affects my mood, and then that affects my mental health, and then that's a cycle. So sleep as itself can start this cascade of all these other things you don't want to do because you made the one decision one day to stay up late. Now, I'm not saying it's the be all end all. There's always there's always wiggle room, and you know yourself best. But it's important to understand, just like there's a habit that can cascade and have all those other habits that you want to get done, like all the other things you want to change about yourself, there's always like one habit that can hit a bunch of dominoes and will eventually cause a whole lot of stuff to fall into place for you. It also works the opposite way. So if you veer off from one habit, it can cause a cascade in a whole bunch of other habits that you don't want to come off of, but you may, just because you were tired, because you came off the one habit that preceded all of those. So 30 days is like the magic number to get into the habit of doing the habit, whatever it is. 90 days is really making it a part of your lifestyle. And really, it's not, you have to do the 90 days and you do another 90 days and you do that 4 times and you have a year. And usually at that point, it's pretty, it becomes a part of who you are. Now, you can always fall off track. Like we have new neural pathways, but the old ones don't necessarily go away. They just become less strong. So it does constantly take work. You have to constantly stay on top of it and understanding where your weak points are and knowing what's non-negotiable. Like, I have to do X, Y, and Z because that is my boundary. I cannot function any other way. And I know that once these goes off the rail, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort for me to get back on track and to be the best version of myself. And then, if you're not the best version of yourself, your life's going to fall apart as a result. And remember, you are creating your life. So these habits are just the physical manifestation of all the work that you've done. Why, you want to keep building, and sometimes destruction is necessary, but sometimes it's self-imposed and it's a form of self-sabotage. And as somebody who does that all the time, I light things on fire, figuratively speaking. I'm not a narcissist. But I will, figuratively speaking, light my life on fire periodically to redo it. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, and I have about a 50-50 rate right now. So it's just a matter of sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not, and you have to just get really clear on why you're doing it. And some things are inevitable, like when you're moving someplace, you're going to cause a shift in everything that you do. But know what your foundational habits are, and knowing those really is like coming home to yourself. So like, for me, it's always been the sleep thing. Like, sleep has been very, very consistent in my life. And I've always, for the parts of my life where I slept according to my inner rhythm, my inner circadian rhythm, it's really important that I abide by that. I do my best. And that alone can cause so many other things to fall in place. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. So just remember, the 30 days with habits is just to get it into place. And it takes about that long to train your brain, keep training your brain to focus on this new thing, even though it doesn't know what this new thing is going to bring. But most likely it's going to bring something it's going to be so much greater than your brain can even predict. So having to retrain it to keep focusing on this new thing, that it's going to be good for you. And then the 90-day number is about really making it a part of the new you. This new, more expansive, better version, more authentic version of you is going to need this habit, and that's where the 90-day number is. And really kind of understanding that in 30 days, it just takes that long to get your entire body on board, getting your biochemistry on board, and getting your brain on board. All of that stuff takes time. And if you're a woman especially, your body kind of works in 30-day increments, somewhere in that range, but most averages on 30-day increments. So you need 30 days increments, and that's how you kind of break up. Most women anyway my age are kind of working with that anyway. So that's how you've got to work, but this applies to men too. So if you're a guy listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have that. Yeah, you do. You still have hormones, and your biology is still relatively similar to ours, maybe not as pronounced, but still has that, and guys still have hormone swings as well. So you just got to work with the biology we've been given, and this is human biology. So you just got, it takes 30 days just to get things shifted, and then 60 days, and then 90 days is really when you can start to see the results of all the work that you've put in. So don't get frustrated if when you start something new that your brain's constantly trying to tell you to get out of it. That's what the first 30 days is about. And sometimes it lasts longer. I mean, if it's a really fundamental foundational change, your brain's going to have a really hard time with it. You may still be talking to it 45 days in, 60 days in, and it's still kind of giving you this backlash. But remember, that's what it's conditioned to do. It likes to predict the future by recreating the past, and it's going to have, it's going to have a lot more data to work off of with stuff that you've done for 20 years versus stuff that you've done for 20 weeks. So don't be afraid if sometimes your brain just pops up and tells you don't need to do this today, even though you know deep inside that you're better off if you just get it done, whatever it is. All right. I hope this helps you guys. I will come back again next week. I'll be back live again next week. Until then, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send them to me. I will do my best to answer them. And I'll talk to you guys soon.